Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is Prince Moulay Hicham El Alaoui, the first cousin of the King of Morocco, Mohammed VI. He's nicknamed the Rebel Prince, and he just penned an explosive memoir published in France. I'll translate it as The Diary of a Banished Prince. It's published by Grasset. It's a very rare inside account of the life in the royal family, but also a vivid attack on the authoritarian drift of the Moroccan monarchy. This comes from someone who lives in the United States since 2002 and who's the third in line for the throne, and now more than ever, probably at odds with his family. You claim that the monarchy is at a crossroads in Morocco. It has to reform if it wants to survive. Why this dire prediction right now?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say one or two things very quickly. Is that this is not, as I said, this is not explosive as much as it is corrosive. There's nothing about private life of anybody. This is not a whistleblower's account as much as it is a real political critique from an insider. So that's important to underline. Secondly, the problematique of the Moroccan monarchy is not new. It is something that is with us for many decades. Is it at a crossroads? It's been at a crossroads for a long time, but now this is particularly pressing given the regional context of the Arab Spring and what is bound to unfold in the decades or in the years to come. And the general thesis of this book is that the modern state, which the monarchy is supervising right now and developing, and the traditional state, which is still there, are in contradiction in terms, are in contradiction with themselves, and are perpetuating this impasse. And that impasse has to be broken by separating the makhzen, which is a traditional authority, with the modern authority, which are allegedly or supposed to be based on popular sovereignty. This is the thesis of the book.
Right. But for now, Morocco is a strong monarchy. The monarch rules on everyone, and you believe this should change, and Morocco should head towards a kind of Spanish or British model of constitutional monarchy. This is what you think is the solution for your country.
This is essentially one of the theses of the book, is that we are living under unrestrained monarchical power, traditional power. It is only slightly mitigated by certain constitutional text, but that is very relative. And at the end of the day, that transition has to take place for the good of Morocco, but also for the good of the monarchy.
So you think the monarchy can survive, or will it disappear if this system, those links between the monarchy, some very strong business interests disappear? Don't you think the monarchy will also be thrown away?
This is a romantic view. Words like disappear or like, vanish. I'm a political scientist, and there is a crisis that will become open, like in other places. And I think, yes, the patrimonial state, which is essentially the marker of this absolute monarchy, has to give way to a constitutional order, like in Britain and like in Spain. But of course, it'll have to take its own path. This is not a question about imitation. This is a way about having our own agency and our own cultural heritage to draw on from.
Why not go all the way? Why not say, okay, the monarchy is not what we need. Let's go for a republican model?
Well, that's up to the Moroccans. The Moroccans may very well say that.
Right.
It's not the case today, but that's something that very may well happen. And if that happens, if a majority of people do want to go for the republic, that's certainly something that we ought to respect and abide by.
Right. You give very interesting anecdotes about the late King Hassan II. You describe him as a very tough monarch, as someone who manipulated people, as someone who repressed people. But you say, nevertheless, he was a real king, by contrast to his son, the current king, Mohammed VI, who you're describing as someone who hasn't really been willing to transform his country, someone who's not really a reformist, despite the image of someone who cared for his people.
The portrait I draw, there is a portrait of King Hassan here, but there is really no portrait of King Mohammed VI. If there is one, it's by ricochet. But by contrast, I essentially describe King Hassan as a brilliant politician, who knew, who had...
But a ruthless one.
Absolutely. There was, the record on human rights is very, very dire, and it's clear. But at the end of his life, he did leave the basis for national reconciliation. As for his successor, King Mohammed VI, I say he has espoused the discourse of democracy, the discourse of change. But the change of paradigm has not happened. We are still very much in continuity rather than rupture. That's the idea of the book.
So you're saying he's pretending, but not really acting? No,
I'm not saying he's pretending. That would be a personal sling and a personal attack on this, on him. I'm not into personal. I'm not saying he's pretending. All I'm saying is that he has to mean what he's saying, and he has to say what he means.
Why isn't that happening? Because he doesn't want.
Well,
maybe he enjoys the old powers of the throne.
Maybe he's enjoying it. Maybe he thinks this is stable. Maybe he thinks that experimenting with anything else is explosive. Maybe, he thinks that if it's not wrong, if it's not wrong, don't fix it. But there's also been a collective failure of leadership in Morocco, a collective failure in the parties, a collective failure, a failure of agency, and that's part of it.
Because he's implemented reform, he's changed the constitution, he's brought in political parties in a kind of dual government, be it socialist under his father, but now the Islamists are in power. So, I mean, there is at least an appearance of democracy, much more than what used to be Tunisia or what is currently Algeria, just to talk about the neighboring countries.
Well, that's what we call facade democracy, based on electoralism. We use the tools of democracy, but there's no substance of democracy. That's one of the critiques in the book. That's exactly the case.
But don't you think that Morocco, in terms of democracy, respect for human rights, is faring better than let's say, Saudi Arabia or monarchies in the Gulf?
Why should I compare myself? Why should I, as a Moroccan, compare myself
in a country where there's a monarchy?
I'd like to be compared to Tunisia, frankly. This is known a transition. I would like to be compared to Spain. Why should I be compared to Libya? Or why should the crisis be a kind of scarecrow? Because there is a crisis elsewhere, for my country to experiment with anything new? That's an open question. I'd like people to answer me.
Right. For you personally, you've decided to live abroad in the United States. You've had many disputes with both the late Hassan II and obviously now with his son. I mean, do you feel that you are rejected because of what you say, of what you think, or because you were maybe seen as someone who could be a rival to be a future king at some point?
You make it sound as if there is bickering. There is no bickering. There is fundamental.
There's no love lost.
There is fundamental political difference, and this book is not a lamentation about those difficulties. It's a celebration of those difficulties, which are the source of independence, maturity, and growth. It's very important for me to underline this. Yes, undoubtedly, yes. A prince in our culture must be someone who keeps quiet and who lines behind the official line. That's what it was, and that's what it is today. And I've decided the path of autonomy and of intellectual freedom.
Does this cause you trouble? You mentioned in the book that you've been intimidated, that some of your business interests were hurt. I imagine this book will not help you in that regard.
Oh, it probably will not help, but it's not nothing new. It's something we will confront, and it's something we have to manage, and something we have to deal with. It's something any Democrat or advocate of change faces in everyday life, and this is not a singularity as far as I'm concerned. This affects everybody.
In this book, obviously now you live away from Morocco, but it seems that you care a lot for Morocco. You have ideas. You say, okay, I might try to contribute something. So people are wondering, well, this is someone who knows how the system works or doesn't work. He has his ideas. Why not jump into the political fray and not only talk or write, but act?
Well, here's the point. I may be knew how the system works better than, and I can imagine how it's working, but Morocco is in need of precisely someone who doesn't know how the system works, because we have to start with a clean slate. So that's already a premise I want to put out there, that this is not, reforming is not knowing about how the system works. Reforming is about having some ideals and how to put them in motion.
You have those ideals.
Now,
why not?
The whole question is how to do that while being positive and being a force for positive dialogue and not a disruptive force. I have had contact, and I have contacts with many politicians, with many advocates of democracy, but I have always forced upon myself and obligated myself to maintain a positive role and not a disruptive role. I do not want this to be a dynastic problem. This is a problem about norms and about ideals.
Do you think that if you decide to enter politics, this will be seen as you fighting your cousin? Is this what you're saying?
I'm saying that's a fundamental concern. Yes, I'm saying this. But I'm also saying that now I was very busy writing these books. I'm very busy on other projects, on another book in the pipeline, hopefully. And I kind of also, in the process, do what I want, do what gives me passion. I also want to have fun. It's also about having fun. It's not just about having this mantra of moral responsibility. No. Everybody's got to live out his passion as he wants. One of my passions is being independent. I produce movies. I'm involved in green energy. I fill my time in the way I see it being productive.
Right. Will Morocco be a democracy one day?
Well, democracy is not inexorable, but the direction of history is. And democracy is a process. It's not an event. It'll be long, it'll be hard, but I think we'll get there.
Okay, Prince Moulay Hicham El Alaoui, thank you very much for coming on the France 24 interview. Thank you all for watching this edition. Stay here on France 24 for more news.